Hello and welcome to another episode of Gigsy's Creator Central. I'm your host Arvind, and joining me on the other half of the screen is Vikram Parthan, CEO of Gigsy India. And today we're going to be talking about a rags to riches kind of a story about how you, as a creator, can transition from being unemployed, being, you know, to move away from the starving artist psyche and mentality, and perhaps even the truth, into a full time professional. Vikram, you do know that before this session, we did discuss a number of different angles. So why don't you start off talking about passion and the conflict between being passionate and having a stable background?
Well, it's a passion problem with finance crunch that is very, very real, and it's something that I have been going through right for a while. And when I decided to give up my corporate career, for instance, I did that in March 2019. But
Uh-huh.
either way, the way I went after that was to make sure that hey, if there is something that is going to give me happiness, I want to maximize it, right?
Right.
So the two driving factors behind focusing on my passion was about looking at not just my passion but also making sure that it actually gives me happiness and that there is enough of an intersection with financial freedom as well at the same time. So it's very rare to have a very good balance between passion, financial freedom, and the ability to be good at what you're passionate about, right? So if you have all of those three things, I would recommend that you start it off immediately and you sort of have a backup, right? You plan for it a little in advance.
Hmm.
Look at a 6 to 9 month gap where you can actually plan for having funds based on your spend. You'll need to start looking at cutting down your spends in areas that are not really necessary, and then make sure that you have a bit of an emergency fund just in case something goes wrong. When you do all of these things and you put them together, you'll be able to focus on your passion for a longer period of time and give yourself the chance of maximizing finances from your passion.
Interesting that you do mention that. And what's really cool is you mentioned that you started your entrepreneurship journey in March 2019.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
coincidentally, served my last day as an employee on the 31st of March 2019. And from 1st of April,
Wow.
I've been an entrepreneur, and it's been an interesting journey. And most of the things that you have said, definitely makes a lot of sense because I too have been struggling with, trying to figure out, hey, this is something I'm really passionate about, and this is something else that I really want to, create and share with the world. And the points about, having that runway, having that safety net is definitely a very valid one. What's
Yeah,
also coming to me is the fact that this is also a concept of risk, if you know what I mean, right?
yeah,
Most people think that entrepreneurs and creative professionals are, like, how do I say, decadent risk takers. But I believe, and I would like your opinion on this, that in fact, we're not risk takers since we're doing so much of planning, so much of, like setting aside money for a rainy day, setting aside money for our living expenses, bringing all of that under control. We're actually taking a calculated risk, which
yeah,
ends up
yeah.
being a much safer bet than just jumping into the deep end. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, see, it's one thing to actually be completely foolhardy about it and not have anything to support you, not have any sort of ecosystem support to support you. And it's
Hmm.
another thing, overthinking and over engineering your whole finance situation, right?
Right.
So it can go from procrastination to being extremely risk friendly, right? So you need to be able to achieve a balance between the two, and the way to do that is, like I said, to look at your expenses over the past year and a half. Understand if you're not already doing that, you should start it right now. You should start looking at your expenses right now. It's never too late. It's never too early to be looking at expenses and saving up. Start doing that right away. Understand how much you can save up on a monthly basis. And imagine that you had an emergency for a year and you weren't being paid a dime even for a month, like worst case scenario. Would the money that you have still make you survive? And if yes, you have all that is needed for you to start off on your passion career and slowly start monetizing on it.
True. And especially considering the interesting times that we are living in, I think this is
Yeah,
very legitimate advice because many people, unfortunately, again, for those of you who are watching this at some time in the distant future, we are recording this during the time of the coronavirus lockdown. And definitely a lot of plans have been upset. A lot of revenue streams have been kind of, shaken up, and we no longer have that sense of control or the sense of comfort that yes, I am going to be, getting that monthly salary. And as Vikram's saying, definitely makes a lot of sense for us to have that kind of a safety net and that sort of planning. One other thing, Vikram, that did pop up when I was doing research for this episode was that there are different buckets that we should budget our money into as well. Since we are speaking of finances, one of the things that I did read up on the internet was that apart from just our operating expenses, right, like the stuff that I need to run the home, I might also want to consider stuff like saving money for taxes. India, we are taxed anywhere from 10 to 30%. And if that happens, we need money set aside for paying our taxes. That's one. Second thing is for marketing expenses itself. When we are starting off as a creator, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of clutter that's out there on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and YouTube, and spending a little bit of money in terms of getting visibility definitely goes a long way. Emergency fund, as you had mentioned, I think that's a great thing as well. Of course, personally, I do set aside some money for charity. It's not much, I'll grant you that, but I do love saving my Indian puppies. So that is one thing that
You like
gives
you
me.
like dogs?
Oh, I love dogs. I'm totally a dog person.
Wow,
So
nice. My wife is
yeah,
a big dog person as well. Yeah.
yeah, I'm a big dog person as well. So just the emphasis on big being on me, not just necessarily the dog. But that being said, I think there's a delicate balance here between how we can manage our profession and our passion at the same time. What is your take on that?
Oh, so let me tell you how I go about it. I think that will give
Mm-hmm,
a very good perspective, right? And I look at every little investment that I make on a monthly basis. I
mm-hmm,
look at operational expenses just to keep ourselves afloat,
mm-hmm,
be it in terms of groceries, etc., etc. I look at other running expenses if I have a vehicle, for instance, right?
mm-hmm.
In today's world, you don't need a car. I mean, if you're in Bangalore, you don't need a car. You have enough public
True,
transport to take care
true.
of your necessities. So I don't use a car. I sold my car. I got some money out of it. I've put that in a safety deposit locker, basically, in long-term mutual funds and all of that. So I don't need, so things that you don't really need and are a bit of a luxury, to be honest. You don't really need to have them with you. And if you can look at saving up on a monthly basis, if you can look at understanding what your expenditure is, um, and in parallel, what I would actually like to add to is the
Mm-hmm,
fact that even before you actually decide to call it quits and get into your passion business completely, it's
mm-hmm,
important that when you are already earning a stable income, you start
mm-hmm.
experimenting, you start putting in the long yards, right? Because that
Right.
will give you a very good idea about where you're headed and whether you can actually make it or not. So it's important to start early in every case, whether it's
Mm-hmm,
in terms of saving up or whether it's in terms of even focusing on your passion business. It's
mm-hmm,
important to start early, and even when you're doing something with a full time job in a full time position at a company or whatever, it's important to take that time out and make sure that you're putting some effort into your passion business and sowing the
mm-hmm.
seeds for it.
Yeah.
And by the time you're done and you're very clear about what the answer is, you would have actually saved up quite a lot of money, right?
Mm-hmm,
And that's one of the things that people should do to make sure that they have enough buffer in the bank as well, and that gives them a very good idea on what their finances are going to be like, whether their passion business is working out for them, whether they're willing to put in the hard yards, whether they're getting happiness from it, all of
mm-hmm,
those things.
mm-hmm.
So I would recommend starting early in each case.
Mm-hmm. All right. All right. There are two things that I did want to add to this particular comment that you said, right? One is for those who have not yet gone in full, they've not taken the full step forward into becoming, a creator who's able to turn their passion into profit. What Vikram's just talking about is known as a side hustle, right? So when you are at work, you can experiment with your ideas, you can find your voice, you can figure out what are the different kinds of topics your audience is interested in, where you can find out the other people who are the influencers in your space are, how you can connect with them. You can figure out what kind of products are available in the market and what you can create. You can actually practice different ways of creating content, right? I think that's one of the things that we are teaching in our one-on-one coaching program for new creators as well. We're giving giving people, like for example, Madhukara, he started making daily videos about yoga. That's there. Tony and Sagar, they're making music videos, and they've been able to share that very, very consistently on their platform as well. Of course, this and other ideas are available in our Gigsy U setup as well, where new creators are taught pretty much everything that they need to know to go step by step from just being a creator and being able to make money from that. So that's one thing, right? So you can use that time as a side hustle to start understanding what you need to do and getting off to a running start when you actually start. That's number one. The second thing, and I think that's particularly important for those who are already on this thing, they quit their job, perhaps they've not necessarily done the kind of planning that they need to do before this. For people like that, I want to tell you, don't lose hope, okay? Because I'm like you. I've been there, I've done that. I'm more impetuous, more impulsive. I don't know if impetuous is the right word, but I'm definitely more impulsive. And I'm like, okay, you know what, let's do this. And I've done that. And over time, what I've learned is there are two kinds of jobs. One that's going to keep the kitchen fires lit, and one that's going to feed your soul. So one for the kitchen and one for the soul. There are many times when we have a certain, when that overlap happens, like Vikram's talking about, that is paradise. But until we get there, sometimes we just need to suck it up. Don't keep a long face, don't be like a horse, and you just keep on keeping on, right? You just you just keep on focusing and doing work that might not necessarily be completely aligned with what you want to do, but it still puts you forward. It still helps you keep the kitchen fires lit, still helps you, give you that runway to keep on until you actually get your business up and running. And believe it or not, I'm not afraid to confess, I am in that situation. I am in that situation where I am, doing different projects to keep my kitchen fires and my a roof on top of my head, and of course, I'm also working on a bunch of fun projects, which are awesome. So that's pretty much it. But I do want to share one story, and actually, I think Vikram, you could probably do a better story of sharing somebody else who's actually gone through this transformation. Why don't you talk a little bit about that, and then we'll wrap up.
Let me talk about a couple of things
Okay.
first. I think you touched upon the fact that we are helping creators understand what their business should be like and all of that. So I wanted to quickly talk about that for a couple of seconds, right?
Sure.
Uh, every time anybody gets on board as a creator on Geeksy, you get free marketing advice. You get a free understanding of how to run your business. We will help you through the first few weeks to make sure that you start earning money on the platform so that you know that it will become easy. You know that you're not alone, and we are there for you. We are there for you throughout every step of the way, and you don't have to feel insecure about what you're doing. And we are there because we understand. We have been in those situations on our own, right? So it's important for you to know that we do that on Gixie for free, and you don't have to worry about paying us any of that nonsense. So it's very easy for the first few weeks. You will be handheld, and you'll be taken through a nice little journey of understanding how to run your passion business. So that happens as a default offering that we give to every creator who gets on board the platform, right? I want to talk about that. So it's important for you to know that there's someone else along with you, and someone's actually holding your hand and taking you to success, and that's important, right? From a second perspective, the question that you spoke about, Arvind, in terms of being able to run your passion business, and for me, Geeksy is my passion business, right? And I'm
Hmm.
taking this as an example, and I'm taking me as an example to start with. Sure, there are a lot of creators on the platform that are running their passion businesses and they're making money online through our platform already. A lot of
Hmm.
them are close to 20, 25K a month. So, we are already in that space where we are doing that. And to give you a personal example of me, I actually went through this whole transformation journey myself. I spent a year and a half trying to ascertain what I really wanted to do in life, what my real purpose was, what my real calling was. Spent some time accumulating a little bit of finances. You know, put in the hard yards. Didn't sleep for a few months very nicely, primarily because I had to take that leap and make sure that I'm putting in enough effort to understand if this business is worth it or not, right? Because for me, seeing other people succeed with their passion is what gives me that rush, and I wanted to do that without any variability in my head. So it took me a while to get there, and once I got there, there was no looking back. So you should make that commitment for yourself. You should make that commitment to yourself, saying that you are in this 100%. And you start off slow, in the sense you put in the extra hours after your work is done. Do not compromise on your work. They're paying you your bills. They're paying for your bills. Make sure you do not compromise on that. Put in all the extra hours you need on your passion business outside of work, and make sure that people are, that you are very convinced about it over a period of, let's say, a quarter or 2 quarters, around 6 months. And once you start experimenting quite nicely and you start earning money over the 6 months, and you can really crank the throttle and take your earning to the next level, that is when you say, you know what, I'm going to focus on my passion business 100%, and I'm going to be completely soul based and nothing else.
Cool, cool. And while you were chatting, one very interesting idea and thought popped into my head. Perhaps what we need to do is in future episodes, just focus purely on having these sort of business discussions, right? You and I, we're both entrepreneurs. And I think it's a great conversation for us to have on, essentially if we had to take somebody who is still, let's, hypothetically still in a day job, has a lot of passion, but if they need to make that shift, from following a profession to turning their passion into profit. How do they do that? I think that's a great thing, and we should definitely explore that. In that case, thank you very much, Vikram, for sharing what you've done. And for everybody else who is just tuning in, please make sure you go watch from the beginning of the video. I think there's a lot of useful stuff shared in this particular episode, some things that you can take away and start implementing immediately so that you can start turning your passion into profit. Without much ado, I'm Arvind Sundar from Gigsy signing out. Don't forget to check out, and I'm going to let Vikram finish the rest of this sentence.
https geeksy.in. Start right now for free.
You can actually see this. I think my finger's tracking. Yeah. So
Turn
make sure
your
you.
passion to profit.
All right, guys. Till we meet again. Farewell. Bye-bye.
Bye.